Hello and welcome to the first edition of Literary as Feck, post Nick's extreme plastic surgery makeover. How are you feeling about your new face there, Nick?
Am I Nick?
Oh, you've changed your...
Oh yes, yeah. I can't do an Irish accent. Big, lie bigorny. It's
What? Lie bigorny?
I don't know. Green. To.
Wow, this is even better than I expected.
Hi. Oh, I should do it. Green clovers. I live in PEI. I don't know.
Wow. That's
Is
for all
that-
you Irish watchers.
That's right.
So yes, Nick is on hiatus for this Halloween edition of Literary Effect. So here we have Mr. Ron Scott. Hello, Ron.
Hi, yes, not
Yes.
Nick. Hi.
No.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Good. I mean, you've already given your money's worth there. By God, that was.
Gosh, and Bigarni.
So anyway, so I have a question for you to begin with. Yes, so Nick's on hiatus, so I've called in a few friends to fill in with some Literary as Feck shows, and I realized, oh, I haven't got anyone for the Halloween show, so we got Ron in a little bit short notice, and the book I originally chose, which I can't even remember what it was now, but
Carnosaur.
Carnosaur, that's right, yes. So you would unable to get download it onto your Kindle because you're having tech issues with your Kindle.
Yeah, unfortunately, my Kindle is about 12 years old and no longer downloads things. So it's sort of I basically am forced to only do what books I already have on there and haven't read yet. And so I maybe eventually someday I need to get switch my Kindle over to a new one so that I can start to download again, and then we can redo Carnosaur at that time. But
in the meantime, you have a paperweight.
Yes, well, I can read books that I already have on there. I have about 10 to 15 books that I had downloaded that I hadn't gotten around to reading yet. So at least I can read those, and then I can always reread books.
Brings me to my question. So I asked you, well, do you have anything lying around on your Kindle that you can that is Halloween appropriate? And you sent me a list of stuff on there, and there was some interesting stuff, but it was stuff that I already read. I noticed you had Robert Chambers's King in Yellow, and you had some Lovecraft on there. And one of the things you had on there was Dean Koontz's Frankenstein. I don't know if you have the whole series, because it's a series.
I do have, yeah. So what happens at my maybe 5 years ago or so, a friend of mine back in Canada said, "Oh, you got to read this series. It's really, really, really good." And I was like, "Oh, sounds interesting." And then I downloaded all 5 of them and then proceeded to never read them.
Okay. Well, that was my question, because I was wondering why they were on there. Just because the reason I chose it of the selection was I've read some Dean Koontz before, and whereas I don't think he's a great writer, I have had fun with some of his books. Like he does know how to write a page turner every now and again. Like I remember, a few of his books were like, once you started, you're like, oh, you have to know. But I mean, he tends to.
He's very much like I don't know, like an airport writer. You know what I mean? Like books you find for an airplane.
Yeah.
That that you sit down and you want to read it.
Not everyone's
fills the time.
And yes, he often paints himself in a bit of a corner, and they get a bit kind of disposable towards the end.
Right.
But it's not for nothing that he's entertained you for 3-4 hours before it kind of runs out of road, right?
Right.
And so I was thinking, so I'm always happy to, if it's a Dean Koontz thing that I haven't read before, I'll give him, I'll give him a chance because he can.
Yeah, I went through a period in my teenage years where I read a few Dean Koontzes. I was into like the what was there was a movie made in the late 80s, early 90s.
Watchers, maybe the Watchers series.
No, where there's like it's like another world, and there's like it's kind of not Pinhead, but it was kind of like there's like an underworld kind of like another anyway. Yeah, it's
based on the Dean Koontz.
Based on a Dean Koontz.
I don't know if I know
show. I'll see if I can figure it out as you keep talking, and then I'll see if I can figure it out.
Yeah.
So
So anyway, we went for the first in the Dean Koontz Frankenstein series, Prodigal Son. So the setup for this, I guess, is that it turns out that Mary Shelley's novel was in fact based on real history that apparently happened in Austria in the real version. And it turns out that Victor Frankenstein did create a monster 200 years ago. The monster is still about, and at the beginning of this story is living in a monastery, right, in Tibet, trying to keep his violent urges under control. But he has to return to America, to New Orleans. This is set in New Orleans because Victor Frankenstein is still at large, and he's creating monsters again. And there's also a serial killer who's stealing body parts to create a perfect woman. And there's actually another copycat serial killer as well. There's quite a lot going on in this book. Our main character is a couple of cops, right? Male and female partners. So it's there's a whole hodge. To be honest, I'm still not quite sure, because I suspect you kind of have to go on and read the other books too.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a part one of a series.
Right.
Yeah, it feels really unfinished. Definitely even ending on a cliffhanger, which is essentially, so the main characters, you got the two main cops, which are Carson O'Connor and Michael Madison. And they're sort of they're relatively kind of generic, even though they're kind of main characters. They're kind of generic, like she's a tough, hard-boiled, New Orleans detective, and he's her partner, and he's sort of like the kind of funny guy, wears Hawaiian shirts and makes quips, and they're secretly in love with each other, but they don't want to admit it to each other. It's sort of kind of standard.
It does feel written with the movie adaptation in mind, doesn't it? It's very
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's Deucalion, who is the
sorry, just to go back to the two cops, I'll tell you who they certainly aren't, though. They're certainly not Parker Posey and Adam Goldberg, which is who ended up playing them in the I don't know if you watched the TV movie.
Parker Posey played Parker Posey played Carson O'Connor. Really? Not what I would expect.
No.
Really? Did you end up watching the movie?
Yeah. It's rubbish.
I tried to watch it, but it was like, I don't know if it was my copy, but it kept like repeating the same things, like over, like it was like it would stop and then repeat. And
did
it stop that after a while?
It must have done, because I watched the whole, but I remember having playback issues. I think on YouTube, right? Because it's on YouTube. Someone put it on there. I think I started watching it. I had that problem, and then I think I downloaded it from YouTube, and then watched it in a player, and then it
was fine. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, because it was like I watched like 2 or 3 minutes of it. It was unwatchable because it was just kept repeating. Oh, it stopping repeating.
Yeah, there's something wrong with that file, the playback of it for some reason. Anyway, it's not worth your time. I think it was a pilot for failed TV series, I think. According to Dean Koontz, it started life as it was supposed to be a TV series, right? And then they changed some stuff which he didn't like, so he exited it. But it's actually kind of close to the book. I was kind of surprised. I was expecting them to be wildly divergent, but there's even like dialogue like ad verbatim from the book.
Right. So what was it he didn't like about it though?
I have no idea. He doesn't go into it. He
Maybe
mentioned
Parker Posey's casting.
or maybe, or he mentioned it in the intro in
yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, but yeah.
But he doesn't specify.
That's why what? Yeah. So
yeah, and he didn't seem to mind that they went ahead with it, but he was just he apparently insisted on that it was changed in some way. But it was. I mean, it doesn't have everything that's in the book. You wouldn't expect that because there's too much going on. They stripped it down, but then what they did strip down is pretty close to the arc of the novel. But it's rubbish. I wouldn't bother.
Okay, yeah. Right, okay.
Directed by Marcus Nispel, who made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake and the Friday the 13th remake and Conrad the Barbarian, which I actually kind of enjoyed that version of Conan, surprisingly.
With Jason Momoa?
Yeah, and Rose McGowan.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that one. Yeah, so
that was all right.
Yeah, this this is also all off topic. I know that Dean Koontz is really famous for in the club scene. People who like to go to like clubs and stuff for like Dean Koontz because his name is Koontz.
Mind-bogglingly terrible. I'm not even going to even ask if that's your original joke because it must be. No one else would tell that.
Right. Anyway, yeah. Are you missing Nick now? So
hell.
So yeah, moving on. So we have the two cops. We also have Victor Helios, who is alias Victor Frankenstein, who is somehow made his own research to extend his life to make himself 200 years old, and never really goes into how. No. But there's one scene where he takes off his shirt and says that you can see like all sort of tubes and stuff winding in and out of his rib cage and stuff. So he's somehow done research. It's just sort of like this sort of generic kind of like mad scientist science that only he knows how to do, that is, can make whole humans and to make them superhuman, and also to extend his own life, whatever, but he doesn't share it with anybody else, whatever. And so, yeah, so he's sort of like the main villain of the piece, where he is creating a new race, where he's creating like basically not necessarily. There's a couple of them are actual clones of real humans, but for the most part, they're just standalone humans that you can't tell, but they've been changed biologically to make them kind of superhuman, that they all have two hearts and other organs that they don't know what it's for, and they have like a really strong, like almost metal skeleton that can take gunshots and make them kind of take falls from great heights and stuff like that. So
the monster characters, Decalion as well, he does mention something at some point about when he was born, the lightning that hit him also hit Victor Frankenstein, and in some way changed. So there is some supernatural, which I'm assuming comes into play more
in the future, in other future books. Yeah. Well, so anyway, he so he is creating what's called the new race. So he's creating this whole bunch of people, these who are completely obedient to him and will only do his bidding, and to the point where they can't even hurt him or hurt themselves because they're completely, like subservient to him. It's and like he's kind of,
it's like the first law of robotics thing, right?
Right. Yeah. And so he's placed them into certain places in society, and he's helping them go up and become like basically the idea is so he's working up to creating more and more of these people until he can basically take over and kill all humans and then basically rule the world with his like these kind of like organic robots basically is what he wants to do.
Right.
Kind of thing, right?
Right. And another main character, so he also is creating his own perfect woman, so that he's got like a subservient sex slave, basically.
Right. It was his wife, Erica.
Slowly figuring out that she loves art or something.
Yeah. So the idea is that he doesn't allow any of them to have shame, except for his wife, because he likes to feel powerful through like beating up his wife during sex and using her as this sort of like sadomasochism thing where he's like the only thing he gives him pleasure is to like brutalize his wife while having sex with her, and so he needs her to have shame in order to help himself feel powerful because her shame makes him happy, gives him pleasure or whatever. So but through her having shame, she also becomes aware of other more human emotions, and then becomes respects and becomes to like art and literature that he doesn't approve of, and then she finally decides to go against his orders and kills one of his other creations, which is a sort of head in a jar named what was the name of the head in the jar?
Can't remember that.
No, it was the actor's name. It was like the.
Oh, I know there was a Dwight Fry.
No, it was the
right.
It was named after not Lugosi. It was like one of the famous. Karloff, that's right.
Yeah,
Lugosi,
that was a slightly annoying thing that they did.
Yeah. Well, that was on purpose. The more annoying thing was the Jonathan Harker. I think
Jonathan Harker, because that's not even Frankenstein, right?
It wasn't. Yeah, so that was Dracula. So, but but Karloff was on purpose because it was supposed to be like a joke shout out to that.
Yeah.
So that was on purpose. And so she kind of kills this suffering head in a jar, and then he finds out and then destroys her and replaces her with part 5, right? Number 5 at the end of the book, right? So,
like we say, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, and then there's another character whose name Randall something. Randall. That's the autistic guy.
Yeah, that again, that's something that's clearly gonna come up again in the sequel.
Yeah, that's the cliffhanger because he's on top of all the new race, he's created this other one who's autistic, like fully like really, really like high on the autistic level to the point where he does crosswords all day and can't leave his room because he's too agoraphobic and stuff.
Well, the only way he manages to escape is to turn it into like a crossword puzzle.
Yeah. So he kind of realizes because he gets tortured all the time by going to this sort of like heliocentric kind of geo machine, and then to the point where he's almost dies every time. And so he realizes the only way he's going to get out and live is to escape, but the only way to escape is to imagine that the floor is a crossword puzzle because that's the only way you can get out.
And you have to spell out words at the right.
And he's trying to get to the main Carson, the main cop's brother, who also is autistic because he saw a picture of him in the paper. He looked happy, so he wants to know how he can be happy because he's not happy himself. So he wants to find this other person that has the same as him but is also happy. And so
that's a mirror of the Jonathan Harker. So the cop Jonathan Harker, he also turns out to have been one of these new ones. He's been cutting up people because he wants to know what
makes them happy. So and that's the whole thing is that he keeps his search for happiness. So it's kind of a recurring theme is two different. They're all unhappy and they all kind of like are trying to hurt regular people because we're happy and they're not, and they want to figure out how to be happy, kind of thing. So
there's a lot of ideas, and also I feel as if on top of that, maybe he does it more. I get the feeling that the setting of New Orleans is supposed to be really important as well and significant, but they don't really. I thought they'd be, because it starts off. I thought there would be more New Orleans color to it, but
like voodoo or Mardi Gras.
Again, that might come back. So this was a very easy read, like a breezy read. quick read, but I do
Yeah,
feel a little bit.
that's generally Dean Koontz, is that he's sort of like it's sort of, what's the word, like the pulp,
Well, like you said, you'd read it on a
right?
flight or something, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's very,
a
yeah.
long flight. I I can't say I'm that keen to read the others. Are you
The
gonna,
others, yeah.
are you going to continue with the series, do you think?
I mean, I bought them, so I probably will, just because I kind of want to see what happens, and I have them already, so I might as well
Right, right.
might as well
Yeah, I
finish
could
it.
go either way. I mean, like if I was stuck somewhere, let's say for instance, and for whatever reason I only had access to it, yeah, I wouldn't like refuse to read it or anything. But I don't know if I'm gonna. If I don't continue, I think I'm probably fine with that. I don't really want to know that badly what happens, but I don't know. It made me think of other things as well a little bit outside the book, in terms of things like, so I was thinking about the character living like 200 years, and as how kind of unimaginative he is. Like you'd think, I after 200 years, you think you would have got all that kind of sexual dominance thing out of your system at that point, right?
Yeah.
You think you'd be on to, so it just
It
seems,
seems like it only increased the older he got, right? So it's,
yeah, which
the only thing
kind
he
of
has now.
seemed strange. It reminded me a little bit of did you ever see that film Limitless with
Oh,
Brad?
Limitless, yeah.
Yeah,
Right. With yeah.
which is a film I kind of weirdly enjoy for some reason. I've seen it a couple of times. But it's funny because it always makes me think like, so the concept behind that film is you can use your entire brain rather than a bit. But then basically he just drives fast cars, speaks French, and shags women, and you realize, oh, you actually need a script writer who's using all parts of their brain to actually
Right.
like they can't write that because
Certainly that's what I would do if I was using my whole brain. So
well, that's the thing though. If you did, you'd probably do something extraordinary that you can't even conceive of, and clearly,
yeah, of course, yeah,
can't
you have to.
even use their imagination to.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So that was kind of, yeah. The character was just a little bit. I don't know. He seemed like regressive. Like I would have liked to have seen a slightly more interesting villain, and less villainy in a way, like actually trying to do something worthwhile, but accidentally causing pain. So whereas he just seemed to be like,
yeah, he's just like a Dr. Evil,
an old
I have to rule the world,
yeah,
and create suffering wherever I go, kind of thing. Yeah, there's not really much to his character other than, I've
different from Victor Frankenstein as well, right? Like,
yeah,
like the original character is kind of noble in a way, right? He's misguided and he's done the wrong thing, but
right,
he has noble aims, right?
I mean, I think in general the book was enjoyable. It was a page turner. It was certainly, it kept your attention. It wasn't boring or anything like that.
No,
it was fairly well written. I mean, in terms of that, right? Yeah. But I think the thing that left me a little cold was just there's just not much in the way of characterizations. All the characters are pretty standard. There's hard-boiled cop and the funny partner and the evil genius mad scientist and the brooding kind of monster who looks terrible but has a heart of gold, and it's just sort of, it's all really kind of standard. There's nothing really that interesting with any of the characters, right? So that's why I'm more interested in trying to read the others, hoping that maybe there will be more flavor into the characters as it goes along. That he was able to stretch it out to 5 books, so I'm hoping that maybe there's something else in there.
Is it 5? Is it?
Yeah, 5. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, I will read on eventually just to see. Yeah, and I'll let you know if I.
Let me know.
I'll let you know if anything expends. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a good, like, if you want something, an easy read that kind of keeps your attention, it was fine. yeah, it was an interesting I mean, I guess it's a sort of retelling of Frankenstein, or at least a reimagining of the Frankenstein story to some degree. But yeah, I don't know. Out of would you give it a how many stars would you give it?
Out of what?
I don't know, whatever system you use. What do you guys do in the show? I don't know.
Well, we don't do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I would give it absolutely no stars, Ron, because
0 stars out of
we
0.
don't do that. Yes.
Great, perfect.
How about you?
Yeah, I'll just go, Bigorny. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh,
Lucky Chars.
they don't have stars in that island that you come from.
Yes.
Right.
Just
Okay,
outside of
then.
Ireland.
Yeah, the sea. I think is where that accent comes from. Right. Okay.
So it looks like I'm just reading up that apparently they were talking about doing a TV series about this.
Yeah, it was a pilot. Yeah, it was a pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, again, you
well,
mean?
no. What you saw was the movie. They made a movie in 2004, but they were actually going to 2012. They announced that they were going to make like a TV show on it. On
Oh,
the whole,
they're gonna have another run
Yeah.
at it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that was like more than 10 years, 11 years ago now. So I assumed that didn't go anywhere because they were planning to adapt all 5 novels. So
right.
yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know what happened with that. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that was a great
that's
anecdote to go out on. So until next,
we
time,
should mention also that the title, we never said the title of the book. It's actually called Prodigal Son.
Oh yes, yes, it's Dean Koontz's Frankenstein 1 Prodigal Son, I guess.
Prodigal Son, yeah. So yeah, each of the entries have its own title. So yeah, so this is Prodigal Son, and it's followed by City of Night, which is part 2, and then Dead and Alive, part 3, Lost Souls, part 4, and The Dead Town, part 5. Finished in 2011.
Okay, doc. Okay, thank you very much, Ron.
Thanks for having me.
I'll let you get back to Ireland now, where you're from, of course. And I'm off to listen to awesome club music. Koontz. You silly Koontz.